You are listening to the All Day Ruckoff podcast, episode number 96. Welcome, the All Day Ruckoff podcast, episode number 96. This is your host, Brian, and I wanted to thank you so much for tuning in. The All Day Ruckoff podcast focuses on the GRT and Rucking community and includes interviews, motivation, and advice to keep you informed and get you ready for your next event. In this episode, we have an interview with Jason McCarthy, founder of GORUCK, about everything they've been doing up to this point in 2019, what Jason's excited about for the future of GORUCK, some projects they're working on that haven't been released or announced yet, a lot of really good details. This isn't your traditional interview with Jason McCarthy where we talk about how GORUCK started, where they came from, how they were founded, how they got to where they are today. A lot of other podcasts have done that. In our interviews with him, we have very specific questions, some of them user submitted, and they're all very good. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. One thing to note at the beginning about my son having surgery, I waited until after his surgery to record this intro, because if you watched the YouTube video about that February Rucking challenge, I'm really good at jinxing stuff. So my son did have open heart surgery on Tuesday, which was 4/9/2019. Everything was super successful. He's doing well, and definitely didn't want to pre-record that because knowing my luck, I would have jinxed something. So everything's good there. Don't have to worry about that. There's the details on that. As always, if you want to support the All Day Ruckoff podcast, you can leave a review, iTunes, Facebook, or check out the online store, alldayruckoff.com/store. And with all that being said, here is the interview with Jason McCarthy.
Brian, what's up?
Jason, how's it going?
Great.
Happy Monday.
Yeah, trapped indoors in Seattle weather in Florida. How are you doing? You got a lot going on, man. How's the fam?
Fam's doing good. Yeah, man, it's been a little crazy. Mason's got his open heart surgery a week from tomorrow, with Watson passing like a week and a half ago. It's been a busy couple weeks.
Yeah, that's hard, man. You know, I can only imagine what y'all are going through. So we're here for you.
I appreciate it. We adopted Watson when he was 7.5, so we had him for 6.5 years, and I mean, it's a solid chunk of time.
Yeah, it is.
Anyways, how are you doing?
No complaints. No complaints. You know, staying busy. Happy to talk about anything you want to talk about.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, it seems like you guys have been incredibly busy down there, especially this year with the introduction for the Rucking challenges for all.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been a push, right? I mean, we've been kind of the Rucking company for a while without stamping it quite so much. So I think one of the lessons we've learned is that you just have to do more, you know, to kind of reinforce your foundation, and that's good, right? I mean, it's good. So we're enjoying it.
Good. Was that tough to stamp it as GORUCK, the Rucking company? I mean, it makes sense looking back over what you've done over the years, but I mean, putting that, you know, on ink it's a big change.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, as opposed to what? Like GORUCK, the backpack company? That doesn't sound interesting or fun at all. I've never treated GORUCK like that. Or GORUCK, the events company. I mean, I have treated GORUCK like that before. I'm just talking personally, which has ripple effects, except that, you know, the team still has to spend a massive amount of time on, you know, gear development and operational stuff and all of that. And that's overwhelmingly, you know, more of our revenue. I mean, but neither ever felt like us. So we're in this kind of conversation about, well, are we a gear company that also produces events? Are we an event company that also produces gear? And that has not only external confusion, it leads to internal confusion as well, which when either of those is off, it's bad. When both of them are off, it's really bad. So kind of uniting around rucking it, it was pretty obvious once it was kind of staring right back at us, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, a couple of years ago, and you might still have to today, but explain what rucking is. But you might as well explain that first, and then you've gotten all the confusion out of the way, right? We're GORUCK, the rucking company, and they say, well, what's rucking? You explain it, and then you can just go from there.
Yeah, it makes it a lot simpler. I mean, I would rather lead with that explanation than talk about stitch counts and why it's a better backpack. I mean, because if you put it up front and you say, well, we're the rucking company and this is what rucking is, just walking with weight in your backpack. Sometimes I can see when I say that, some people, they'll be like, oh, okay, cool. And then I'll say, it also happens to be the foundation of special forces training. And then you get there, it sort of piques their interest, which is telling. I mean, it's not just the special forces thing. I mean, not anyone, but lots of people can just stamp special forces on stuff. But when it comes to sort of human performance and training and all of that stuff, I mean, nobody's ever talked about rucking like that until us. And nobody's certainly ever done anything about it, meaning gear and events and the whole kind of ecosystem around rucking. So it's our great differentiator out there. I mean, anyone can kind of come along and knock off GR1. They already are. They're trying. I mean, it's harder than just, I've got a similar design though. I mean, you've got to have the right kind of foam. You've got to have the right kind of primary materials. You've got to have, I mean, that stuff the process to get that stuff doesn't just happen in someone's heads. It's the execution that will test your mettle.
Right. Right. And that's kind of the problem with the internet, is that they spend like as little as they can on making the knockoff, and then they spend more money on getting those pictures to make it look like it's quality. But like you said, I mean, knocking off a pack is one thing. No one can knock off the events, because the events, I mean, that's
good luck. I've seen people try. I mean, someone can certainly replicate portions and do all of that, but just the network and the operation behind it, and more importantly, maybe the community behind it. I mean, it takes the network of cadre, and then it takes the whole community. So it's not really either or; it's both. And having both of those is great.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge differentiator for GORUCK. Absolutely. I still get people emailing me all the time, they're signed up for their first event and they're excited to be part of the community. So it's more than just what GORUCK's bringing to the table, but by doing an event, kind of what it unlocks.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's what we've learned over the years, right? Is you have to have something that's sustainable as a company that keeps people engaged. And there's a lot of ways to do that. I mean, you can have government contracts, for instance, that are just kind of on rinse and repeat. You can have, contracts with REI or with big box retailers that then market your stuff. You can hire PR firms and ad agencies and build an ecosystem around, the marketing of your wares or your goods, right? And we've never been very good at any of that stuff, right? I mean, the day will come when marketing becomes more important in a kind of a more professional style way, but it will have to be on top of what we've always done really well, because that's our culture, and that's just grassroots driven, events focused marketing through events, right? So it ties an experience with the brand of GORUCK, and that's exciting for us, and I think that excitement comes across to people, and then they're excited because it's not for sale. I mean, events are, you have to pay to register, but it's like the experience that you experience when you're done and the community that you join, you have to earn that, and that's a lot more powerful than anything that you'll ever be able to buy.
Oh, for sure.
So that's sort of the ethos of who we are and what we're about, right? Is the education of people on training or rucking or their own perceived limits or, their perceived limiting factors related to their, how do you make friends? How do you go out and experience a world with other people? What should that look like? How do people meet people? It's this age-old question, and it's become increasingly important in the modern age, right? I mean, these are the things that I think about. We're kind of, especially as my kids are growing up. I mean, Natalie's 7 going on teenager, right?
Right.
Jack's 4 and Ryan's 2. And, I mean, I want to make sure that they're able to interact with people, that they want to get out and do awesome stuff with other people, and that they want to be part of communities in the real world. I mean, I think the digital stuff is inevitable for all of us. I mean, we all have phones, we all interact that way, but it can't be one-sided. And so those are the parts that I really enjoy about GORUCK, is I'm a one guy in a community just like you are.
That's such a great way of looking at it. And I mean, such an awesome thing to say, right? Because I look back to when I was a kid and like all you could do is play outside. I mean, that's what you did, is you played outside with other kids. And now, kids, they don't even have to go outside with video games. Even adults, like Uber Eats and whatever, you don't even have to leave your house. You can, as long as you can work from your house, you never have to leave. You can have literally everything delivered to you within half an hour.
Yeah, and it's terrible for you.
It's awful.
It's cumulative. It's like it's things in the short run are fine, and we all do them. And I'm passing zero judgment, right? I mean, sometimes we have groceries delivered because our kids are hellish, and it's a Sunday afternoon, and there's nothing for lunches the next day, and all this stuff. I'm not saying drive yourself crazy going, running errands your whole life. I'm just saying that what you're saying, we want people to get out and experience stuff together in the real world. And this idea that we could, should, or would just sit at home because we can, and we can play more video games or do whatever with also not real people. It just, those kinds of things worry me. And so, I want to just remind us and present alternatives of community that are a little bit richer than what you'll find from that stuff. As fun as it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I mean, just like what you said, the amount of community that you get at GORUCK events, the amount of community you see in ruck clubs. I mean, not, bashing on social media and all that stuff, because I love seeing what other GRTs are doing, what other ruck clubs are doing, because that inspires me on what I'm going to do that day or what I might do next time with the ruck club. And all that stuff is great, but it's kind of like you're using those portions of technology to push community in the real world, not just using those to live your life in technology.
Yeah, or not just to sort of buy and sell.
Right. So I've got a list of questions here that I wrote up. I wanted to make sure that we touched on, but as always, I want to open this up.
Let's do it.
All right. So the first thing that's been on my mind since, I don't know, I guess it must have been like 6 months ago, 5 months ago, you did a live video on the Carryology closed group. And I asked a question during that video because you were talking about a ruck that you are working on that hasn't seen the light of day yet. And I'm curious about that. Is there any new information about that pack?
Wow, I don't even remember which one we were exactly talking about, to be honest. We have been working on a pared down, stripped down version of the Rucker even, but we have been working on that. I actually just approved that last Friday. So it takes a while to go through the cogs to get released. And then, I would say next year there's kind of talk of how to do something in the first steps towards what people would perceive to be more explicitly about hiking. So, I'm not talking big, giant framed packs, but probably the lightest weight version of something that people would expect would be for hiking.
That's exciting.
So, because I mean, you say how does it kind of relate one to the other? I mean, or with the direction of GORUCK is hiking is just rucking in the mountains, right? So we're sort of passing new product development and other things through the guise of how does it work while traveling, training, rucking, stuff like that, and it's always got to look good at the bar, you know. And so that's kind of allows us some freedom to focus, and it's it sounds counterintuitive, but saying no to a lot of projects is actually affords us a lot of freedom because it syncs up marketing, it syncs up new product development, it syncs up how we're going to communicate the story, how are we going to have events that go along with it. So the hiking realm has been more of a complicated one for us because the events have typically not been big anchors for us. So we haven't used them as much marketing collateral. So we have to kind of design more appropriate ways to involve that gear into those events and then watch them grow together.
Yeah. And it's really nice to have some free time too, right? Because then if you're not going, like 110% every minute of every day, then when opportunities do come along that you want to pursue or even think about, you've got time to do that. You don't just cast them off to the side because you don't have time for it.
Yeah, you mean with R&D?
With anything. Yeah. I mean, just like you said with pursuing the hiking.
Right. So we have these events that are hiking. I see what you're saying. We have these events that are hiking events, and we've done them in the past. And, they just events as a strategic place within GORUCK is kind of, it's not and never going to be our moneymaker, although it is our engine for community, which is the engine for the brand, right? So, I mean, they're of vital importance without being just the absolute driver. The corollary to that, though, is that we have to sync them up with product in order to be most effective. So that's good. I mean, that's good because when we do that, it will be sustainable, as opposed to, we've done a lot of one-offs over the years, and I'm not ruling that out over the course of the future because you never know, you learn as you go. But doing something in isolation, like say, a shoulder bag or something like that, that's kind of not connected to the events, has never done very well for us. Sustainably, they can do fine out of the gates, but then it doesn't sustain because marketing doesn't talk about it because we end up having too many things to talk about. So we like that sweet spot of where there's that overlap between training and traveling and rucking. And rucking obviously incorporates a lot of that, including all of our events.
Oh, for sure. Because I mean, when you've got event pictures, right? You got pictures of the gear and pictures of the events. So it's like double dipping on marketing there. And I mean, traveling, everyone travels, you travel
That's
for
the
events.
goal.
Yeah. It, kind of seeing the GORUCK laptop bag sitting in a boardroom or something. I mean, it's a nice shot of the gear, but it definitely, doesn't help out any of the other areas. And so I can see how that would fall off to the side for sure.
Yeah, so the most notable place where you'll see this kind of separation, if you haven't already, is just the separation between GR1 and the Rucker. So this philosophical sort of, if you want to ruck and you want to train, the Rucker is for you. If you want to everyday carry and travel, GR1 is what you want. Of course, there can be overlap. There always is. I mean, you can wear running shoes just to walk, whoop-de-doo, right? And so you'll start to see the marketing align more closely along those. And then you could see where over time, even with apparel, some apparel would be better for traveling, other apparel would be better for training, and, stuff like that. So that's what we're really working towards.
I like that. You definitely see it in the marketing and just the way that things are used, right? I mean, if you're going to show somebody the laptop, it's not going to be at an event, except what was that 2014 when someone brought a laptop to a GORUCK event and he got crushed?
Oh, Mark Webb.
Mark
yeah,
Webb,
he,
the MacBook.
Mark Webb, God bless him. Yeah, he was a road warrior traveling all over the place, and he just left it in his ruck. And I can see how that could happen, So, I mean, I'm not sitting here saying, hey, you have to buy 2 rucks. I'm just saying, Because if you have a GR1, you can do a lot of stuff with it. I'm just going to tell you that the Rucker is a significantly better bag for events and for rucking than what GR1 is. And part of that is sacrilege, right? But that's okay. I mean, it's an evolution, and you can't do both. Both can't be the best for both worlds, is what I'm getting at. So, yeah. So it's cool.
Yeah.
Don't bring a laptop to an event. Probably just have a Rucker, and you won't have a laptop compartment, so you probably won't have your laptop in there. Easy.
Yeah. The only reason why you should bring a laptop to an event is if you don't want to do work for the rest of the week, because you're going to be SOL. So,
yeah, let me know how that excuse goes with your boss.
Right. So, talking about, the Rucker, which is just an awesome ruck for rucking. I've got the 2.0. I got it right when it came out. I think that was February 2018 or something. And it's just been awesome with, elevating the ruck plate. You mentioned that you kind of just approved a pared down version of the bag, which we might see, who knows? I mean, development and production times, everything takes forever. I know that game. Is there a chance that you'll be coming out with an intro level ruck that's under that 265 marker that the Rucker's at? Something that's kind of, aimed to target people who are looking to ruck a 5K, looking to join in that way, maybe not the light, tough, heavy event side, and they want to spend a little less than 265.
Yeah, that's the goal. Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, without kind of saying, look, I think the bullet ruck will. It always kind of depends on the weight, I mean, how much weight do you want to ruck? If it's 10 pounds or 20 pounds, I mean, the bullet ruck's a good entry level ruck. However, it's not quite as good for rucking. So there we have kind of a problem, because we want to put our best foot forward on that stuff. So yeah, we just have to figure out what the operational timelines look like, and I would say it's not going to be called the Rucker. So it's not like the Rucker is going anywhere. The Rucker is here to stay until forever. GR1 is here to stay until forever. So it's just more of a pared down version of that. So I don't have much on the timelines. We'll hope to get it out this year, is what I would say. I'll put that at 50-50.
Sounds good. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to, have something because that's what I've been recommending now. If people don't, want to spend 265 on the Rucker, it's basically grab a bullet, because it's great for those, the 5Ks, 10Ks, and all that stuff. But it definitely falls short if you're trying to do a GORUCK Tough event.
Yeah, it does.
But it's not designed for that, right? I mean, it would fall short climbing Mount Rainier or climbing Everest too. It's just not designed for that. It's a 10-liter pack.
Yeah, I mean, the bullet was designed around a 3-liter hydration, right? So that's why the proportions are roughly that, with some extra stuff. And oh, by the way, if you want to use it as sort of a second ruck that you keep a ruck plate in, and you just happen to leave it by the door and use it when you ruck the dog a mile at night, then so be it, right? You can get some extra activity out of it. So yeah, it's kind of or if you travel with the GR2, you shove a bullet in, or GR3, and you say, now you have your day ruck when you get to wherever you're going. It was not designed for the tough.
For sure. Since GORUCK's been moving a little bit more into kind of travel gear, right? So the GR3s come out, the packing cubes have come out, and those packing cubes are awesome. I've used those for a lot of trips. Is there any plans to bring back or kind of, redesign the packable backpack, kind of like that, the SD line, SD 15, 20, and 25?
Yeah. I think, so this year is kind of a bit of a transition year in terms of the ability to scale up some of the manufacturing. So none of that, you're not going to see any of that stuff this year. There's just a lot going on with apparel stuff and footwear stuff and kind of the rucksack stuff as is. So tapping the vendors to do more new stuff like that with unproven records at high price points relative to the marketplace is probably not going to happen. Next year, maybe. We just have to sort of see where the dust settles. I mean, like we're fortunate that we have a lot of patterns that we can go back to, and most of that stuff we don't carry anymore. Probably the shoulder bag is the only big exception, because that's kind of a philosophical, philosophically we don't really want to carry a shoulder bag anymore,
Right.
just because it's inferior to rucking with a backpack or a rucksack, right? So we have a lot of old patterns, shadow pockets and shadow rucks and all of that kind of stuff, and we're certainly amenable to bringing them back. We just have to kind of figure out the operational process and cost, and as importantly, marketing bandwidth. And that's the piece to try to lump into this is, it's one thing to kind of say, okay, the Rucker is for training and GR1 is for travel. It's another to actually communicate that and keep communicating it. And so what you've seen for the beginning of this year is we've focused almost exclusively on the Rucker and on its role with training and rucking and ruck PT and stuff like that. And so, the Rucker is doing really well, and relative to what it has done in the past, because we also wanted to use that to sort of push forward GORUCK as the rucking company. Now, then we have to start to slot time, if not campaigns, and something loosely tied to that, where we also talk about the travel rucks, right? So you say, hey, I have a laptop, I want to travel, and EDC in my city, I want to, I'm traveling in the city, whatever the case may be. So we have to kind of block off that time as well. It gets hard to cannibalize that time with too much stuff unless you have it built out into travel sections and things that make it easy for people to understand, because, hoping that people are going to spend a lot of time or waste their time trying to find stuff on your site is like a great way to go out of business. You need to make that part easy on people so that they can make the best decision possible. And that's the hard part for them, right? Do I get this? Do I try this or do I not? Right? If the navigation and stuff and it's just unclear, then you're just going to get people that leave, and it's just not worth it. It's like people are mostly like other people like that. If something's just too hard or doesn't make sense, it's like, I don't want to do it. So that's where a lot of things outside of our biggest drivers have kind of landed when it all comes down to it. So we have to make sure before we launch stuff that we have kind of a plan for launch that makes sense, and then that there's kind of a sustainable way to keep the momentum on a product as it's a part of a series or a category or whatever other words that my business school professors would have used to teach, like product segmentation across various lines, right?
Yep. And I mean, we've talked about that a little bit on previous episodes, like the number of SKUs, right? I mean, the more stuff you have that you're selling, the more things that you have to market. And so if you've got 20 different products that don't relate, that you can't market them together, I mean, it's tough because you have to have 20 different campaigns, and every single new item you add takes away from proportionally every single other item, because it's something you have to focus time and energy in figuring out how it works. So, I mean, it makes a ton of sense.
And it's like a bullwhip effect. It's like a bullwhip effect at the factory level, because they get good at sewing stuff that they've sewn before. So you kind of want to keep it, if not steady, at a minimum seasonal, right? So they don't forget it for years. It's not like you can just go back 5 years and say, hey, you did this 5 years ago, let's just order it now. It doesn't work that way. So, it does have to be tied in. Now, one sort of caveat to that is I'm pushing really hard for us to get more into the workshop model of both colors and things like that, where there would be more emphasis on your ability to order stuff, pre-order stuff, I should say, at an earlier date with some potential customizations maybe, but also just limited colorways, or if not unique designs, then certainly limited. And we could run that across a lot of different SKUs, and that's a sustainable way for us to do it. And at the same time, we could also offer a discount for the early pre-order. So it might work. We would just have to create a category out of that, though, so that it's not just one-offs. I mean, we did that with GR3 and it worked really well. We did that with Mac V1s and it worked really well. So if we can create a true category out of that, it probably has some legs.
That'd be awesome. I mean, it seemed like it went really well with the GR3. I mean, clearly it went really well with the Mac V1s because I think I saw an announcement where that was like your number one selling product, which is amazing. And then
yeah, who would have thought, right?
Yeah, I mean, the internet's a kind of a weird echo chamber, but it seems like they've done amazingly well. So congratulations on that. You mentioned shoes. Shoes are going to be a big thing in 2019. So you teased kind of on Instagram the 8-inch. Are there any plans for another low, a new type of boot? What do you have? Anything that you can divulge there?
Yeah, so 8-inch. I actually just got the Coyote sample today. They look great. I'll probably post a teaser pic sometime. They look great. So we just got to figure out. I mean, I would bet that the Coyote ones will come out in a pre-order, and I don't know what the appetite is for the black ones in 8-inch. So we might pre-order those as well. We have that system process down. That boot, I mean, personally, I would prefer the lower one. That's kind of why we did it. Other people, though, I mean, people serving in the military, they have to use the 8-inch ones. So we can certainly come out with those. And other people like it. People got different feet. People have different, different stuff going on down there. So, different strokes for different folks. Happy to put those out there. So those, I don't know about how soon, but those would be a pre-order. And then once they're on pre-order, it's, I don't know, you're looking at 2 months until it's like, it takes the factory about 6 weeks, kind of turn something around. And then it's, no, it's more. So you're looking at about 3 months because then they got to come on a boat over here. So also looking to do it in the Vietnam Jungle Boot colorway, which has been kind of a big request with the sort of the green webbing and Cordura on the sides of the boot and on the tongue.
That'd be really cool to see.
And so your other question was anything else? Yeah. So we're working on some lows as well. So low top or just sort of rucking sneakers. We don't have a name for them yet. So I don't know what to call them. We usually have kind of working names, and sometimes those become the piece of gear. Not always. These ones we kind of don't even have a working name yet because we started out calling them Mac V1 lows, but they seem different enough, and we're taking the midsole down significantly so it's not so big, and because you're still getting a lot of support from the insert. And changing the tread maybe just a little bit, and there's more Cordura and way less leather, if any leather. So you're starting to say, okay, it's not really like the Mac V1 anymore. And we messed around with this for way too long, trying to just shrink it and turn it into a low, and it just looked terrible. And at some point when it looks so bad, you don't even care how it performs. But it was too heavy. Ultimately, for what you would expect when you pick up the Mac V1 as a boot, you say, "Wow, this is really light." You really expect, sort of like when you go to dinner, you eat with your eyes, right? Something shows up, you say, "Wow, that looks good," or "That looks bad." That's what the brain does for everything. And when we shrank the Mac V1 and made it into a sneaker, and then we're sitting there, you would pull it out of the box and you would just say, "Man, this is really heavy." And so. That just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So we went back to the drawing board all over again and basically chopped out all or most of the leather except for some suede interior leather to kind of, same suede interior leather to prevent blisters and stuff like that. But it's they're coming along. Goal is to kind of launch them this summer. So we'll see how we hit that. No promises, but we're working hard to get it.
It makes a lot of sense because the height on the boots, that's probably where the least amount of weight comes from. It's really light up there, so I'm sure you hardly shaved anything by just kind of shrinking it down.
Yeah, it was just weird how the brain worked on that. Yeah.
Yeah, just don't call them the Reekers, Ruck plus sneakers.
No, we're not going to call them that. That's not a good name.
No. No. So you mentioned just a little bit ago that it's nice having gear that aligns with events. And so speaking of events for this year, 2019, we haven't really seen any immersion or expedition events on the calendar. I'm guessing that you were talking about dabble in hiking related gear for 2020. So maybe that will pull back the expedition events to align with that. Are there any plans on bringing immersion back?
Yeah, I get this question a fair amount. So maybe, I mean,
I know registration numbers were low, and I know that with immersion, I mean, there's permitting, there's real life permitting involved because you need to get stuff for the water. So you have to have everything pretty much locked away that month in advance, which makes them more difficult to put on and secure than the traditional light, tough, and heavies.
yeah, so it's sort of a time benefit analysis, right? I mean, the time spent to produce something new. If you all really are excited about it, then great, we'll do it. If if you say you're excited but you don't show up, then guess what? We'll do it once. And so that's sort of where we are. I mean, it's like everyone wants Nasty back, and I get it, but Nasty only got about 2,000 people. I mean, for what it was built to get, I don't know, closer to 10,000. I mean, and be more of a full weekend. I mean, plain was is if we could have gotten more people, it would have been 2 days and all of these things, right? And so, you start to say, okay, do we want to generate a lot more marketing on this, or do we, spend that bandwidth, that time elsewhere? And immersion is sort of tougher because there's no natural product alignment that goes with waterborne events unless there's a rucking component to it, which I think there is or should be. And so yet, I mean, sometimes you got to just enjoy doing something and do it, and that's cool too. But spending a lot of time on immersion, it feels like people want it, but they don't really want to dedicate the time or the money to doing that kind of an event. So that's okay. We're willing, able, and happy to do lots of other events that people will also sign up for.
Yeah. And you could run something like a combination of immersion and expedition where you start out in the water, do like a crash landing scenario or something like that. And then you do water survival, get out of the water, and then ruck through whatever terrain you're in to get back to civilization.
Yeah, I think there might be some value in, if you look at the halo effect that goes over the top from the special forces way of life, and you say, okay, well, how do we operate underneath that? And the scenario driven events, or don't call it Trek, stuff like that, it's interesting. It's interesting because if we viewed it as more of a true capstone and you had to sort of qualify for it, you had to do something throughout the course of the year in order to show up for something like that, then it takes a lot of the pressure off of us to make sure that one event is kind of, that its numbers, specifically the profit and loss statement of whatever that specific event's numbers are, they take on a decreasing importance, right? So by that, I mean, if there were a national series, say there were a national series called Constellation, and then that built to something that was more significant than what Constellation 24 was, maybe there were other elements of survival that went into that as well, then that could be really cool because it's also a really good sort of story. You could see some narrative that would happen. I mean, and if we did it at HQ in Florida, then we're able to cut down a lot of the overhead. And to most of the people out there, it's kind of, if they want to come to a once every other, or who knows, once every decade type of an event, then they're willing to travel, as GRTs have always done, to big events, because it's not just about the GORUCK event, it's about seeing the people. So that's what we're trying to do, and not exclusively isolate it to Florida, to headquarters. But at the same time, when something gets really operationally challenging, this is certainly the easiest, best place for us to do it, because we can just surge to that event with a lot of support from our team that's already here.
Absolutely, right? I mean, the space.
I'm not saying that you're going to see anything like Trek. I'm just telling you that there is a cadre who is now in charge of designing something for next year that is a calendar of events that then builds to one culminating event at the end of next year, and that's a cadre machine. So it would not be. This is independent of his focus on firearms as well.
That's exciting. And it makes a ton of sense to locate something huge at HQ, right? Because you guys know the area, you know the space, the location, the surrounding area, and like you said, you can bring bodies if you need it. And plus, everyone likes going to GORUCK HQ.
Yeah, I mean, safe houses are easier. The after party is easier. I mean, we can, instead of paying to rent out a big space, and I mean, we just fill the fridge with beer. It's like easy. And then, bring a food truck in or something, easy. We just know how to do it, so we can focus on the quality of the event even more. And so if you get more of a national series that builds to something, there's also just more momentum. I mean, that's why there are these annual competitions that all of the sports have, the NBA finals, the Super Bowl, the season has to kind of build. And this isn't the same as that, but it's along those same lines, right? I mean, it's the GORUCK Challenge season almost builds towards selection in some weird way, I mean, it's kind of, and for other people, it builds toward Normandy or NYC 9/11, or, maybe they build themselves from a tough to a heavy, but kind of the rucking style event with cadre there, it turns into a viewership of selection. It's just what we've seen, because the challenge being a team event, I mean, maybe that also needs to build out into a team event, right? That's competitive. So what is, would, could, should that look like? And those are the things that we're thinking about, not for immediate action, but for how we do it and how we build out these series. And that's a lot of fun, because it feels like there's a lot of sustainability to that, right? I mean, as opposed to just launching Lightning once, we have to give more thought to how it can build itself out.
That's so exciting. Honestly, I'm excited just thinking about that and about everything that you've been talking about with these bigger style events. So it's gotta be fun to plan some of that stuff down there.
Yeah, it is. I mean, also, what does it look like to sort of come up with the preeminent rucking event? Just rucking, like the Star Course, except who's the fastest rucker? I mean, I kind of want to know, I mean, if you say, what's the weight requirement, what's the route, what's the distance? I mean, you start to recreate sort of the marathon type approach. That's a little different from what we do with the Star Course, but it's also it's another thing on our radar. I mean, how do we create some momentum around that? Because the rucking company, who's the best rucker outside of special operations, and they're of course willing to come in and beat everyone else if they're in the country, of course. But those are the kinds of things, because they're just bigger moments. I mean, the challenge has seen a lot of evolution in terms of the types of patches and the types of events that it has, which allows it to sort of stay fresh, and yet it also needs these bigger anchors to keep people really engaged, right? I mean, the community is what really keeps people coming back, and yet patches help too. So it just has to live and breathe, and it has to do that consistently. And the team has done a really good job. I mean, they make a lot of that stuff look really easy, and there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes and out in front of the classes. I mean, the cadre, it's still just, one of the great honors of my life to get to work with all those guys in this capacity again. And it's not that easy to show up on a street corner at 11 p.m. or 1 a.m. or whatever it is and take roll and then, lead a GORUCK challenge. It's not something that most of us are just roll out of bed ready to do. And the guys do just an extraordinary job. And, the team back here does a really good job of supporting them. And all of our kind of ideas, it's not like I just sit here with a light bulb and that's where it all comes from. It's far from it. There's a lot more collaboration that comes out of all the cadre's thoughts and our staff's thoughts here. And then the trick is just how to piece them all together and make sure that they're synchronized so that everyone's kind of on board together. And there's a lot of layers to that, with calendars, with gear, with events, with new product launches, with what else we're talking about, what kind of season it is. And so it's increasingly challenging, and I couldn't be more grateful for that.
And so one thing that I hear you mention over and over and over again, because it's one of the most important pillars, I feel like, of GORUCK, is community. And so it's just been awesome to watch the community, grow and evolve, and all the new people coming in since 2011 when I joined. And I'm really excited about the monthly Rucking challenges that GORUCK's been putting out, because I've been following. You've got the hashtag Rucking Challenge. I've been following on Instagram and on Twitter, and you're seeing a lot of people out there rucking who have never done events before. And so I know it has to be expensive for GORUCK to, fund the creation of all these patches, to put resources towards, creating the PDFs, creating the website pages. There's just the marketing. There's just a ton of things that go into putting on a huge thing like this. And then you're giving the patches away for free. You're having them shipped out of your, distribution center, which costs money. I don't want to say the questions, why are you doing all of this for the community? But what have you seen come from this? Because it seems like just an awesome grand gesture that is, you guys are putting a lot out on the table, and you're basically saying, just go out there and rock.
Yeah, well, thanks. I kind of never thought about it exactly like that, but sort of. And part of it is, how do we not do this? Because what we've seen is that, look, the GORUCK Challenge it's a really significant event, and it's not going to be, a million people are never going to go through it in a year or anything like that. And so at a strategic level at GORUCK, we said, and every company tries to do this. They say, okay, how do we get more new people without diluting the brand? Okay. And so for us, the way that we do that is through Rucking. Plain and simple, it's through Rucking. And I have yet to meet a person who is telling us, like, oh, you guys are selling out because you're focusing on Rucking. And the response has been really incredible, because you've got, at one spectrum, you've got special forces guys, right? The amount of rucking that you do in the selection processes and just in general it's staggering. That's your career. You have a rucksack on your back. And at the other end, you have people who, as we were talking about earlier, people who want to get more active. They want to be more part of a community. And where should they start? How should they do it? And rucking is how they should do it. They should put 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds on their back, and they should start walking around the block. Now, the goal of a business, or in this case, a community-focused business, is to build communities. This is the 101 of special forces. How to build a community is to educate people and to give them something of value, and then to trust that that's been of value, and that they'll go out and do it, and that they'll show their friends, and they'll build rapport with their friends on the back of this education. And there's trust in there, right? There's hope and there's trust. And the fact of the matter is, though, that however many, a decade later, I have an infinite amount of trust in our community to get out and want to do a lot of really great things in a short life, and to really want to do it together. And that's really inspiring for me. So, I want to be a part of what we're doing as well. I want to get out there and do more. And this has been a push for me as well. So, I can tell you, it was a push for Emily to start her Ruck Club, just right by our house, because our kids are, they're savages on the weekends. Putting them in the car to drive them 4 miles to headquarters, to then go on a ruck, to put them back in the car and go home, is just not something that we were going to do. So it's just not, weekends are supposed to avoid the tyranny by your children, and that doesn't help with that. So, what we're seeing, though, is that there's a lot more people in our community who are rucking. And so, it's too much for us to just send an email out that says, go ruck. And I think that this is one of the life lessons as well, which is, it's always about the how. Well, how do I do it? People want to know, how do I do this? How do I meet people? How do I get more active? how do I build a business? How do I, it's sort of, you tell someone, oh, go be better at this. That's not worked very much, right? Showing them how is a lot more productive. And so, we want to provide some fun incentives for people to get out there and be more active. And we think that, it's a little bit of build it and they'll come, but by doing this, that good things will happen.
You've definitely built it. So I don't know what the numbers are, but I hope they're coming.
Yeah. And so the other part of this though is that, we've got a guy named BJ who's working on the GORUCK app, right? This is his baby here. And he's on our board of advisors and not full-time in Jacksonville at all at this time anyway. And so he comes from a background where he was on the small crew that built out Nike Plus, right? And all of that stuff. And so that's just a longer term project. So you're looking at next year, that'll come out, right? Our target date is around January 1st. We'll see, right? More updates on that to follow closer to the date, I'm sure, because we won't just surprise the world with that one. But part of the thing is that no matter where you are, and I mean, Gandhi said, "Be the change you want to see in the world," right? And it's kind of like if you sit around and wait for the app to solve the training problem for GORUCK, aka there's not enough training content out there that we're offering up to people for free, then so we stay behind the scenes all year long and we build out all this quote perfect training content, but it's never been tested. People have never seen it. There's been no engagement. There's been no reaction. It's just been developed in isolation. That's a really flawed strategy. So what we're doing is we're just acting like we have this cadence of training, rucking, community building content, and we're just doing it without the app. And so you're going to see those two worlds starting to collide, and they are colliding behind the scenes, but they'll collide in front of the scenes. The monthly rucking challenges will be operationally very easy to execute when there's an app, right? I mean, there's all sorts of that kind of stuff. We're just doing it the hard way this year. And so we're getting a lot out of this as well. We're seeing what people like. We're seeing what they do, what you all like the most and what you don't like, And so that's really valuable for us, and it lets us provide more value to the community, which hopefully helps build and strengthen the community, which is the ultimate goal.
I'm excited for the app. I remember you posted something, a little thing in the Tough group, but I didn't know that the guy who's working on it also was on part of the team for Nike Plus. So I'm excited to see what you guys come out with, because it makes a lot of sense to have one. So you mentioned the monthly challenges will probably be involved with the app. Another question I had was, going back to community and the whole importance of the GORUCK community. Right now, the GORUCK community is predominantly on Facebook, and that's worked out pretty well, except for maybe that full day Facebook outage. But is there any plans to, with the release of the app, have kind of an off Facebook GORUCK community, something else that you guys own and control?
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate goal is to run that through the app. So, we see additional value in getting our cadre out there, as well as more trainers and motivators and community builders. And so kind of, this is certainly not a 1.0 feature, by the way.
Right.
So just expectation management is just how to create community leaders. And that also goes not just to the Special Forces cadre, but to all the Ruck Club leaders out there. I mean, they're doing a really great job. You guys are just awesome. And you're out there organizing your community, and you're bringing people together. And, it's really a positive thing for your community, for your state, for our country, when people get together and go be more active together. And so building things around that as the model that we want to encourage, and not just by our cadre, but through Ruck Club leaders and people who want to organize. And so that's part of the goal as well. The community feature will be a prominent thing. And that's just a natural reaction to how the company has grown, because that's how the company and the community growth are, directly correlated. And I will say it's causal from the community side to the company side, because it's not just running banner ads on the side of Facebook or whatever that causes growth. It's been word of mouth to us.
Yeah. And I'm really excited to hear that. Obviously not a GORUCK app 1.0 feature, but I mean, just the whole thing, right? Like you register for an event and the start point changes. Boom, you get a notification, an app notification. Hey, your start point changed. Hey, Cadre says bring this, special piece of gear to the event. I mean, there's so many I think things that will make life a little bit easier when you guys have an app, but again, not 1.0 features.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion, because the events run through the shopping cart. Which is designed for a gear shopping cart. It's, GORUCK's broken a lot of hardwired stuff, and we've had to kind of, piece some stuff together, which makes a lot of this complicated. But ultimately, yeah, the communication around both from us to you all and you all amongst yourselves, I mean, that's the goal. And look, I'm not saying we're going off of Facebook or completely away from it, but I think that, Facebook as a whole, the value becomes in the smaller groups anyway. I mean, the tough group being, to us, a big, small group, and there's some value in that. But when you go to NorCal, you say, they like their NorCal GRTs page. When you go to, New York, it's NYC GRTs page, and that's more part of their daily lives, or DMV GRTs in the DC area, because they're impacting each other's lives more consistently, right? Because they're there and they're able to organize together and go do real stuff together, which is the whole point of this anyway, right? It's not just an online forum where you sit in your own echo chamber and it doesn't matter where you live. We want it to matter where you live or where you're going or where you want to go. And that's the goal.
I love that goal, and just the focus on community, the focus on the people in your area, the ruck clubs. I mean, we saw that just a ton last year in 2018, that huge ruck club focus. Not that there wasn't a emphasis on ruck clubs before, but like a really detailed focus on the doc on this is how you build a ruck club. This is how you can run a ruck club. And it's just been awesome to see just GORUCK double down on community.
Yeah, so we have Kit, Bomber, and Lee in the Rucking activities division, right? The RAD at GORUCK. And they're interacting with ruck clubs existing and new on a daily basis. So they're sort of, if you empower people to do certain things and that's their responsibility, that's how things get done, right? I mean, telling someone something is their 10th priority is a great way for them not to do that. So, it's taken us getting a little bit bigger to have a little bit more ability to focus on, that more. And so, yeah, that's, it's good. I think it's only going to continue.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's always a pleasure talking to those guys. They're awesome people that you've got there. And the whole GORUCK team that you've got, every single person who I've ever talked to who has worked at GORUCK has just been, phenomenal. So good job pulling everyone together.
Well, thanks, man.
So
thanks.
Yeah. So you've got a larger team now, obviously. Back when I did my first event, I think it was just you and then maybe someone answering emails. It was a little bit smaller back then. So you've got more,
a little bit, yeah.
Just a little bit. So you have more people on staff now, and with more people comes, turnover. You see it, and GORUCK is still a small company, so it's got to be tough when someone moves on, because I'd imagine it's kind of like family over there. But how do you guys handle those kind of transitions?
Yeah, sometimes things, life happens. Things come up. People, it's just kind of a natural part of it. I don't really enjoy it because there's a part of me that still very much misses, the very small team that we had at the very beginning. It was first was Polly, then it was Polly and Sophie, and then then there were a few more of us, and then there were 5 or 6 of us, and then we moved down to Florida, and none of them ended up coming down here, right? And so it's there's just a natural ebb and flow. I mean, I think that if you talk to people who have been through a lot of business cycles and business growth, I mean, it's a lot of times the people at the very beginning are not right when you're a mid-sized company, and then you become a mid-sized company and you need, to be a bigger sized company, and sometimes the skill sets don't align anymore. I think it's a two-way challenge though, because I hope that we're able to help people evolve and to grow and to accept more responsibility. And a lot of times that means that they have to accept more responsibility while they're here as well, right? And they have to be willing to fail more. They have to be willing to, stay up late and learn an extra skill. I don't know, right? I mean, there's always a way to stay at a place if you're, if you're willing to adapt. And there's just a lot of adaptation. And I think that's required when there's a lot of change. And when you're a small company, there's inherently a lot of change. So it just, the law of averages would say some people aren't going to be able to adapt to that as well as others. And that's not the goal, of course. It's just sort of a natural part of the process. So, we end up having a big get together at the end, and we raise a toast, and, then we stay friends, and sometimes people circle back, and sometimes we don't see them for a while. It's just kind of the nature of the beast, I suppose.
Absolutely. And when you have a company of greater than one person, it's bound to happen eventually.
Yeah, I mean, people's expectations change too. I mean, someone comes in and they think that they're going to be on a certain trajectory, or they want to be on a certain trajectory, but it doesn't happen for maybe various reasons, or maybe a lot of reasons, or maybe no good reason. Who knows, right? And then they somewhere else has a slot that opens up to them. I mean, I don't know. These things happen, right?
For sure. And that's life. So one of the things that you've recently done, I don't know how recent it is now, I guess it might be a couple months ago, but you opened up scars for gear customizations, which was, just freaking awesome to see, because people can send down their gear and they can have like handles added, they can have extra webbing sewn in, patch areas, all that good stuff. Are there any plans in the future to basically you've mentioned it takes 4+ hours to make a GR1. I think it's been the number, to like hire a scars tech for a day to sew up a custom GR1.
Yeah, I would very much like to do that. We just don't have the bandwidth right now. The team I'm not going to say there's just rucks stacked everywhere and we're so far behind. It's just, without doing much or any marketing about scars at all, it's been a very steady stream. So we've gone back to the human resources front. I kind of want to close the last point out, and then I'll talk about this.
Okay.
About the team and kind of growth and those pains. I mean, one of the things that we did recently was we brought in a human resources professional to come in and help us make sure that we're retaining and keeping the best people, the best talent, because they are like family to us. So we want to make sure, what did your parents do? They told you to go to school and stuff, right? I mean, your grandparents are like, go to school, get good grades, right? I mean, that's kind of what you're supposed to do for people that are in your family. And so, we viewed that as kind of a necessary thing for us. And I always kind of poo-pooed HR, especially at the beginning, because it's just one of those things where rules and regulations and all of, procedures and processes and performance reviews and all that stuff, when everybody's working out of the same room, it's not quite as necessary, right? Because everyone's kind of a check on everyone else, and you're just sort of there. At least that was my experience when there were 7 of us working in a room the size of your kitchen, right? And so strategically we said, look, we want to make sure that this is going to go well. So we hired someone with significant experience from, worked at a really big company in DC for a while, from here, we went to school together with Emily. She's Emily's best friend. She's our Jack's godmother, right? Our son's godmother. So we've known each other for forever, and she's come on board and just brought a lot of experience. Her name's Monica. Just brought a lot of experience to what we're doing and to some of our human resources processes. And so that's a really important part of growth, I think, as well. And, one anecdote to that is that I read a book by Howard Schultz, the Starbucks guy, where he basically said that, in the early days, I would have told you that marketing or finance or operations, these were all the most important departments. But he said, over time, I realized that HR was the most important department because it's about the people who are in the ecosystem of Starbucks. And that made a lot of sense to me. That one quote really, really stuck with me from whatever book it was that he wrote way back when. And so when it comes to scars, we just have kind of there is demand for the services there. We do see it of strategic demand, meaning it's not a one-time hit. We're going to keep selling rucksacks. Some of those are going to come back. As we sell more rucksacks, people are going to want more customizations and modifications. So the question is sort of how do we go about and find people with sewing experience? And it's kind of a dying culture in America for the most part. It's typically older folks or, there's not a huge sewing culture in America. Let's just say that, right? And so where there is a sewing culture is riggers, though, the parachute riggers from the military. And so, we had a meeting about this last week, Monica and I and SP and Christian from SCARS, and he's talking about how do we hire someone or more people over time to come in. So what you'll see is we're gonna post a job, at least one job, for someone with a military experience, so a rigger who will fit into our culture pretty well with the military roots and service and stuff, and come in and be able to help the SCARS team, and which would also mean if we have more bandwidth, then we can open it up to more marketing, meaning marketing is just communication, right? So more communicating about the value that we can provide at SCARS, which would lead to the ability to do things like you brought up just before, which was, can I rent a SCARS tech for a day to do a custom GR1? It will absolutely happen. I just can't tell you when.
That's exciting. That's really exciting to hear. And I love that quote as well, because I mean, a good HR team will just allow, employees to grow and to, expand knowledge and be better. And then, like you said, with sewing, I mean, the last housing crisis we had, gosh, what was that, like 2010 or so? I mean, that was really bad for sewers in America, right? Because there was a number of shops that ended up having to shut down because, nothing was selling. No one was having stuff made in the US for a bit because it was so expensive. And I feel like we lost a lot of really good sewers who ended up moving on and doing something else. And so it's tough. It's the big thing, like you said. Everyone's saying, go to college, go to school. Not many people are saying you should skip all that and become a sewer. So it's definitely a dying skill set.
I mean, it ends up being a lot of immigrants, right? That are busting their ass working a lot. And, I've been in all of our factories, of course. And, there's a lot of Mexican Americans down in Southern California that are sewing, and they're doing a really good job of it, and they're busting their ass doing it. And, I go there and it makes me really proud to see, because I see people that are working really hard to provide for themselves and for their families, and and strengthen their communities through that. And they're doing it here in America, and that makes me really happy and proud to see. So, in terms of, I don't see a lot of value that most of us in our sort of American society as a whole are placing on sending people to trade schools and stuff like that. They're happening, of course, but there's not quite as much money in sewing as there might be in some of, construction or something like that. So, it's one of those things where there are strategic forces at play that are really limiting the output capacity of manufacturing in America. And I mean, it kind of is what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's like you can divert a river, but you can't sort of turn it around.
It's very true. It is what it is. And I'm just continuously impressed that you're able to produce the number of stuff that you are in the US. I know it's there's only a handful of solid, big scale shops that can produce packs like the GR1. So awesome job. So I mean, I've had you on here for a while, and we've covered a number of different topics. I mean, we're heading out into 2019. GORUCK's the Rucking company. What are you most excited about for 2019?
At a personal level, I'm really excited about Normandy because I'm going over there with M and doing the Star Course, and then there's a couple tufts and stuff on the beaches at Normandy. I haven't been since 2002, before I was before I joined the Army and all that good stuff. So that's at a really personal level. I'm excited about that. On sort of the GORUCK front, I'm really excited about being more focused and kind of, we're not there yet, but seeing how the layers of new product development and marketing and training and events and an app that we're developing in parallel and all the content associated with all that is kind of coming together. That's exciting for me. And that's because of the team and the leadership that we have in their respective departments there's a lot more crosstalk, and there's just a lot more planning. And so that's a good thing. And it's really fun to sort of watch that come together.
I'm glad you're getting to go to Normandy this year, but I'm really excited about the app because I'm not able to go to Normandy. So the app will probably impact me a little bit more. I mean,
yeah.
Are you excited for GRT reunion coming up? That should be nice, having like 130 signups so far.
GRT reunion, of course. It's sort of, I'm actually going to Thailand for 2 weeks almost for this Niantic event that's over there through Ingress. And so I come back and GRT reunion's almost here. So I'm kind of haven't fully braced the awesomeness that is the fact that the community is descending upon GORUCK HQ yet, but it'll hit me. It'll hit me really soon.
Yeah.
Bomber brings it up every day. I see him out there talking right now with someone. Every day he's like talking about the reunion and stocking the beer fridge and this is going to happen and that's going to happen. So it's awesome to see.
That's really cool. And with a 2-week trip right before that, I mean, you have to kind of have your sights set on that first. You can readjust when that ends on the flight back. So I should be excited. You're doing more with Niantic. Very cool.
Yeah, they remain kind of a fun place to work with because you sort of see how they do things, which is interesting. They're obviously a lot bigger. I think their most recent valuation is something like $4 billion with a B. So they're a pretty formidable force these days. And we've been friends with them for a long time. So it's really cool to just kind of get to work with them on some projects, and you just see how they do things and the people that they have, how they think about things, and that makes you better. So that's the part that we really enjoy about it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been cool to see those events, continue to evolve and change. And I know that you mentioned in the past you guys have a pretty good relationship with them over there. So is there anything else that you want to talk about related to, GORUCK, the future, the Rucking community, GORUCK as the Rucking company? I've gone through all the questions that I've got, and so I just wanted to open it up for you.
Yeah, so it's sort of finished up a book, or at least a draft of a book. That'll probably take a while to come out, though. We're sort of looking to go. It's got passed around to probably 5 or 6 people, and it's there's a lot of content in it, but never really wanted to just write kind of a pamphlet. I always kind of wanted to write more of a story driven or a narrative book. And that's hard when you're trying to talk about training stuff, right? So I've never seen anything quite like that. And so, just focus on a couple stories to educate people as to how, not just that rucking is the foundation of special forces training, but how it's the foundation and why. And so a little bit of a story from me about special forces assessment and selection. And then there's a story from Cadre Dan, and then from Rich, who we worked with on the MAC V1s, just about rucking in their, careers, and in Dan's specific, throughout their Army careers, and in sort of GORUCK universe as well. So there's some stories, and I think part of the thing that we're doing also is we're kind of turning it into a picture book as well, right? So 100,000 words, but it's a picture book, and that's another layer of editing and creativity that 10 years later we have a lot of great pictures from the community. There's a lot of great pictures from special forces, and there's a lot of great pictures that we would like to help tell that story. So, that's a really fun project though, but it's also kind of been driving me crazy. It's also why it took me so long to kind of finally sync up with you and come on the podcast again. It's kind of locked myself away for a few months because the brain, the left side, right side, whatever stuff, it doesn't work as well if you're kind of always available to emails and stuff like that. So, it's been a different kind of beginning to this year.
And you just released the GORUCK Rucking white paper, which was, that thing took me over an hour to read.
Yeah, so that's part of that. It'll get evolved a little bit, but that's going to be part of the book. It's just a section in the middle. And you could imagine that as sort of some type of pamphlet. But I just kind of thought, and then, we all talked about it, and it seemed to make sense to us that let's just release that and get it out there sooner and see what people's questions are, if any, and then let's make it better, right? And then let's add pictures to that. So, in the version for the book, every single one of those little paragraphs has a picture. And when we release it as the white paper online, you're just getting the text, and then maybe over time we'll release some videos that go along if there's a tutorial section to some of it and all of that kind of stuff. But, it'll get a lot richer and more entertaining if, more fun to read and be a part of if there's a really cool picture there. So excited about that process as well. It's been fun to kind of comb the archives of GORUCK's photos and past and present, and plan for some new shoots where we needed it and stuff like that. So it's been fun.
I bet. Just going back, looking at all the pictures over the years. That's just a ton of memories.
Yep, good times. So yes, that's kind of all I got. I know you got your son's got a big surgery next week, so I'll be thinking about you and your family, and all the best.
I appreciate it.
Posted. I'll be praying for you guys. And another note is I was at the Green Beret Foundation Board of Directors meeting last month, and your name came up, and everyone was just so grateful for how much you've done for that foundation as well. There's a lot of stuff that Special Forces guys are still out there doing. A buddy of mine that I served with the 10th Group passed away and died in Afghanistan 10 days ago or something now. And, he's finally home. He'll be laid to rest this week. But, there's just a lot of really difficult work that's still being assumed by the Special Forces community. So I just want to pass along my really heartfelt thanks to you for what you've done to help support the Green Beret Foundation and what that message and mission are about. It's really important to us, so it means a lot, and I just want to say thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to the All Day Ruckoff podcast. I really hope you enjoyed this episode with Jason. It's always fun having him on. And again, thank you, Jason, for just taking the time out of your day to do that call. If you want to get to the show notes, you can head on over to alldayruckoff.com/podcast/episode-096. Otherwise, a lot of the podcast apps just have that in them, so it should be good to go there. I'm really excited about all the stuff GORUCK has in the pipeline, specifically that cheaper ruck that's meant for rucking. Really excited about that because I do get a lot of questions about budget rucks for GORUCK events, for getting out there and rucking that aren't the bullet, a little bit bigger, but they also don't cost $265 like that Rucker does. So hopefully that comes in at a cheaper price point and it can be a new recommendation. Lots of announcements and things happening in the community this week. So if you want updates on any of that, you can head on over to alldayruckoff.com. If you've been following Kadri Rooney at all since he was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer back in September, there's news on that. And the Kadri Rooney gear is back up for pre-order at GORUCK. So if you want some of that, definitely check it out before pre-order closes. It was really tough getting that news about Kadri Rooney passing. So head on over to GORUCK, grab a shirt, grab a patch. 100% of the funds raised from that are supporting his sons and his family. So grab the gear, do the Kadri Rooney WOD, do +1 on all the reps for him, and get it done. As always, thank you so much for all the support. If you ever want to reach out, you can send me an email, Brian, B-R-I-A-N, at alldayruckoff.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed the podcast, we'd love a review on either iTunes or Facebook. And don't forget, attitude is everything. Keep yours positive and drink hard, ruck harder.